Good morning, guys, from Las Vegas. We arrived here in the evening yesterday, and I met up with my buddy Matt. We had some food in the back of the van. We went out and had some teriyaki and hung out and talked about life and everything. But this morning I've got to continue on. I'm going to meet my friend Cyrus, and maybe we'll do a little video. But in the meantime, on my way there, I decided to go up and down the strip with the van, which I thought was pretty cool. And so I've got the camera on the top of the van recording the strip. Hope it comes out pretty nice. It should, actually. It's a little windy, but I think it should be come out pretty good. It's kind of funny, when you live in Las Vegas, you very rarely go to the strip. It's more or less something that provides an opportunity for a lot of tax base and funding for the roads and the people that live in Vegas. The people that live in Vegas benefit a lot from the casinos, but they don't really go to the casinos, which is funny. This is pretty cool. I think I can actually connect to the camera on top of the van. I can see what it's seeing. Oh no, I think it's too far away. Try again. Yeah, neat. Wonder if I'll be able to see what it sees. Yeah, cool. Neat. Yeah, that's the view from the top of the van. That's so funny. That's so cool. That's so neat. Nice. Let's see how if it bumps around when I start moving. Oh man, that's so cool. It looks so nice. Yeah, when I lived in Vegas, I was like an import-export guy. I helped all of these casinos find products in China to give away as gifts to the people who go to the casinos. The casinos are always trying to find excuses to bring people into the casinos, so they'll send out like, hey, it's your birthday, and we remember, so why don't you come in and pick up your free gift? It's sitting at the customer service window, and then when you come in, they give you the gift, and then they give you $10 of free slot play. And then the people go play the slots and then lose all the money that they might have received from the gift, as well as like the actual coupons for using the slots. It's kind of it's kind of sad, to be honest. It's very commercialized, you know. Vegas is extremely commercialized, which is funny because it like was inspired by the mob, you know. It was this sort of Frank Sinatra gambling center where people would come and try to strike it big, and it's so funny. I remember when I lived here, they came out with these like really high definition LED screens, and I remember how amazing that was. Like these like super powered LED screens, and this is like Planet Hollywood right here. I worked with Planet Hollywood when they redid the facade, and they added all those like that wall of like, they look like balls, but behind them they have these backlights at night. It's very cool. It reminds me a lot of China, to be honest, because it has like that sort of Chinese lit up sort of flair to it. Very cool. And you go take your friends to the Bellagio and show them the fountains and stuff. It's super cool. We'll go ahead and drive, I think, right up to where the old Riviera was. The Riviera was super cool. They had this bronze statue in front of the Riviera that had all these girls. They were like what do they call those? The flamingo dancers or whatever. And they all had great butts. So there was a statue in front of the Riviera, and you could touch all of their bronze butts. And I dated for a short time a girl named Ellie, and she was one of the bronze butts. She was working at the Riviera as a showgirl, and she was one of the girls that, you know, what that statue was based off of. I don't think it was actually her butt cast, because that was old, long time ago they did that statue, but she was one of the current girls that was signifying the Riviera. What is the word I'm looking for? Showgirl. That was it. One of the best things about Vegas is people watching. If you like to look at just people from all walks of life, people from all over the world, and you want to see them most of them are happy, even the ones that are losing money. They're in Vegas, so they're excited. They're understanding that they're not going to strike it big. They're obviously excited for the opportunity to strike it big, but you know, they know that Vegas wasn't built on winners; it was built on losers. If you see this billboard right here, it's for the Chippendales. It's kind of funny. My one of my good friends, Bob, he was a male escort dancer. He was one of the Chippendale guys. I don't think he was an actual Chippendale. He was one of the, you know, offshoots of that. There are like similar programs like that with a lot of the different casinos have their own shows for girls and women to go and like ogle at the guys, and then there's obviously the showgirls where the guys ogle at the girls, and it's an equal opportunity place here in Vegas. There's a lot of like things about Vegas that remind me of China, really. It's like glitzy, sort of have the glamorous downtown, and they're always building. Like, looks like the Mirage they recently, well, they're doing something with it. Looks like it's all closed down. Somebody probably bought it, and now they're going to convert it into something else. Out with the old and in with the new. That's certainly China, that's for sure. This is the Venetian, which is like a Paris kind of knockoff, sort of something that looks like Italy or Rome. And then way up ahead you see the Stratosphere, which is that tower. And I did a few, I don't know if I bungee jumped off of that. I bungee jumped off the tower in Macau, which was like the parent or the, you know, the sibling to the Stratosphere. It's very similar. And then obviously the mall over here, the Fashion Show Mall, which has that like weird alien looking dish on the top, which is pretty cool. And all of this stuff takes me back to when I used to live here. It's so cool. Here's the Wynn. Stayed at the Wynn with Annie once, and we had the most awful experience. She lost her glasses in the room. There was construction across the street. Looked disgusting from our window. We tried to change it, and it was a big pain in the ass, especially for Annie. It was one of her first times like going to Vegas. She was really excited about it, and it was a big disappointment. Okay, we're coming up to a place where we can turn around, and then I have to head back. We're going to turn around the chapel area, where if you wanted to get married in Vegas, the chapels are up near the Stratosphere up here. You want to get married in Vegas? This is the place. Yeah, maybe we can pull off at the we can pull off here actually, but I'm not gonna. We're gonna pull off. I want to get closer to the Stratosphere. It's really odd for me to ride down the Las Vegas Strip personally, just because I lived here for so long, and it feels like that guy that's a different guy than the guy that is driving down the road now. That period of my life, that was pre-recumbent trike, pre-cycling. It was traveler. It was a version of Matt that was very focused on money as a definition of success, and it was always, you know, hitting the ground and walking to casino to try to make something of myself. I mean, that guy is certainly here within the current guy, but there was no thought of building a van. There was no intention to travel the world. There was even no intention to live in China. I was just using China as an opportunity to import and export and do my business. And that guy today, you know, has evolved so much. Just like Vegas has sort of evolved, and casinos are coming and going, and new properties are being built, and new opportunities are being made, and, you know, everything evolves, you know. And I mean, I think that was about 10 years ago. 2009, yeah, so that was almost 15, 20 years ago. 2005 is when I first went to China, but I was still living in Vegas. I do like Vegas though. The weather here is quite nice. It's dry. It gets very hot, but it's a dry heat, so it's not gonna kill you. Wow, I think next to us right here, that construction wall, that was a big construction project. That was one of the tallest buildings in Vegas. Looks like they knocked it down, I think. Yeah. No, it's still there. The blue. Yeah, we'll swing past the stratosphere and we'll turn around. It's always interesting to see yourself grow, right? Like, it's like going back to your old elementary school when you're older, and then all the desks seem so small, all the doorways seem so narrow, the hallways and the lockers seem tiny in comparison to what they looked like when you lived there or when you went to school there. And in a lot of ways, it's motivating, right? If you go to a place that you used to call home many years, like a decade later, you really have an opportunity to put your thumb on that and like see a distinct shift. You know, obviously Vegas is a city, but to me, it was home, you know? And that home evokes a memory of who I once was. It's like listening to a song, and sometimes that song can take you back to childhood or high school or university or your first girlfriend or whatever. And then once you have that marker, that anchor, all those memories come flooding back. All those stresses that you had back then that you thought were so overwhelming that you didn't know if you're going to get through. There was some moments here in Vegas where nothing was working out. It was a complete disaster, and it was so frustrating. And I was at my wit's end. And, you know, I never thought about committing suicide or anything, but it was always like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. Am I going to live another day? Is this really going to work out? Am I always going to be this loser, or am I always going to be struggling, you know? Am I ever going to be happy, or, you know, whatever? Or there were moments on the opposite side where you were really happy and you're like, will I ever feel this way again? Is this the best it's ever going to be? Is this Vegas experience what I have to look forward to in my life, you know? And you go so far forward, and now I can barely remember what life was like here in Vegas. I mean, I remember it, but it certainly doesn't define me. I've become a new person, you know, with new hopes and new opportunities and new direction, completely different from the guy I was before. So wild. All right, I'm going to turn around. I'm not going to go to the old strip. I could go to the old strip, but I'm not going to do that. We're going to go up here, and we are going to flip the camera around and ride back, find another angle that will look cool. I set the camera up so it looks up from the trike, which is kind of a neat view. So when I turn, the sun should be shining right on the trike, and I should get some really cool shots. This is pretty neat. Yeah, I was living in Southeast Michigan around the time that there was a big real estate debacle, and subprime mortgages caused a whole bunch of people going to foreclosure. The economy had a real issue with it, and I ended up having to make a big choice. I was like, am I going to sit in Southeast Michigan during this, or am I going to go somewhere that's more conducive to what I was doing, which was helping people make stuff in China and doing business internationally? And I ended up making a huge decision. I bought a big box truck, and me and my dad fixed it up because he was a mechanic, and I ended up driving all my possessions to Las Vegas. And it was, you know, it's tough to say if it was the best decision you made, or if it isn't the best, or if it was the worst, but it was a transformative decision. You never know what's going to happen. You might turn left as opposed to right, and your life might be completely different. The left way could have been awesome, and the right way could have been awesome. They both present unique versions of yourself that will blossom from there. But I do know that coming here to Vegas was a stepping stone for me to move to China. And then moving to China was a stepping stone for me to fall in love with travel. Falling in love with travel was a stepping stone for me to make videos on YouTube. And making videos on YouTube has been something that has affected so many people positively throughout the years. It's really an amazing way to think about the movement of life, you know, and how all these little choices can have drastic effects. I mean, this wasn't even a little choice. This is a big choice, you know, moving to a new place. But I talk to people a lot about regret and the choices that you make. And there are some choices that I wish I would have made a little bit differently. But I also think that if I did, then I wouldn't be me. Maybe I would be crass or less empathetic or an angry curmudgeon, or, you know, any number of things could have changed the person that I am today. And I'm pretty happy with who I am. Being happy with the person that you are is maybe one of the most important things that makes life worth living. You know what I mean? If you are unhappy with who you are, if you're unhappy, you know, in your job or your lifestyle or the relationship that you're in or whatever, you know, making a change, although scary, can be some of the most influential in a positive way decisions you could ever make, you know. I certainly can attest to that. When I first arrived to Las Vegas in my big box truck and all my possessions in tow, I lived in a kind of a nastier part of town. It was on the east side, and it still is sort of the old part of town. And I got myself a little apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment, and I just busted my ass for years, just trying. It was literally jumping off of a ledge without any idea of where I was going to land. And, you know, obviously that was an amazing thing, and then it ended up working out. You know, I'm still here, I'm still breathing. I was talking to my friend Matt, and he was telling me, he's like, that's just sort of the guy you are. Hey, buddy. Hi. Ryan introduced me to the idea of, you know, a recumbent trike, and I decided that this was going to be the tool that I was going to ride with, and I never sort of looked back. There was never a point where I was like, I'm going to throw this trike away, I'm going to do something else. There were many opportunities where I was like thinking, you know, maybe another form of transportation would be better, maybe I would like to try something else, but I never did it. I got this van, and now this van is sort of, in a way, part of who I am, you know? And, you know, you can just sort of multiply that by as many metrics as you want, you know? Like, there's a lot to be said for being able to move and, like, make a shift, but there's also something to be said for being loyal and committing, you know? The trike, for example, is something that it's very unique. You know, it's very strange to most people. I don't know if it really did me a service in my sharing of my story on YouTube. What it did do is it did myself a service in having amazing stories that I was able to tell from the seat of that trike. I was able to introduce myself to people that I wouldn't have otherwise if I was in an upright bike. You know, I would have just been another cyclist traveling around the world. But because I was riding the recumbent trike, suddenly I was somebody that somebody really wanted to approach, you know? I was like, these people were like, I really need to find out what this guy's story is, you know? And that was very helpful. I mean, it gave me opportunities for people to show me kindness. It gave me opportunities to broach a conversation with somebody that I would have ordinarily not had the opportunity to. And, you know, it was just all around a great thing to have. And although I probably would have had more views on my videos if I was riding like a motorcycle or a two-wheeled stand-up bike, my story is unique now. You know, it's even more unique. I'm a guy riding a van with a trike on the back. That's pretty special, and makes you feel good if you do something different, you know? You're not following the pack or doing something that everybody else is doing. You're doing something that distinguishes you from everybody else. Super cool. I'm a little nervous leaving that camera hanging off the edge there. I think I might go out there and pull it off. We're gonna see if we can get past New York, because I think that'll be a pretty cool view, but I'm having a little bit of a nightmare that the camera's gonna fall off. A purely van life note, the solar panels here are loving it. Vegas's weather is designed for people to utilize the power of the sun, because it's pretty much always just burning up the sky, which is pretty pretty cool. I think I'm pulling like 400 watts of solar, and just I think I don't know what my battery bank is, but I'm sure it's sucking up that solar energy. Another van note: I'm not hearing the noise from the engine that I've been sort of used to. I added some solvent yesterday to the fuel system, and maybe there was some scaling on the lifters, the valves, and now with those soaking in that solvent overnight, maybe I fixed the problem, or at least reduced it. I also added some of that solvent to the oil too, so maybe that would be really nice if I was able to fix that problem. So to me, Vegas is a symbol of a pivotal point in my life where I was transitioning from a person that really didn't see too much of the world to a person that ended up moving and living in China and climbed Everest and did all of these crazy things. Why don't you share in the comments section? I'm going to separate this video so it's kind of on its own, to drive up and down the strip in Vegas and sharing my stories. Why don't you leave in the comment section? Do you have a transformative place or event that happened so long ago that you feel like you've become a different person, but you became a different person partly because of that transformative event? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because oftentimes, just simply the act of reflecting on those things can be pretty cathartic, and it can almost recenter your focus, give you a chance to reevaluate who you are today based on where you've come from. And I always think it's super valuable to think about moments in time where you went through a lot of pain and suffering, and then you realize that you're still here. You realize that you got through that moment and you're better for it. And it'll help you to prepare for future times when it's going to be rough. Because life gets rough sometimes and it'll beat you down. And it's how you get back up and how you treat those battle wounds that really defines who you become. And even today, I feel like these moments I'm living through now with this van trip is going to help guide and transform me into a future version of me that I'll look back on 10 or 15 years down the road and hopefully be thankful for and say, wow, that was amazing. It allowed me to touch grass all across America. It allowed me to meet some amazing people, have some amazing cycling experiences, meet some really cool van life people, And I wouldn't have had those chances otherwise. Traveling through Vegas there's a whole bunch of emotions, kind of bottled up, coming out in different ways. It's very cool. Anyways, share in the comment section if you want. You obviously don't have to, but maybe some other people will find it valuable. Take a little time, write a little story. Let's make this comment section full of stories of transformative moments in life that have led you to positive, greener pastures. And if you do, be sure to like, subscribe, share. This might be a nice video to share. I know this guy, Matt, he's doing these kind of weird stories and traveling around the world and doing these oddball things. But maybe you can relate to this guy and then share it. All right, guys, take it easy. Bye.